guys, welcome back to T-Bone Southern Ride. As we're going down the road at half the speed we need, riding the Blue Moon, and if you're here, then you know what's going on. You're right in the middle of T-Bone Southern Ride presents Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem. And the cat's out of the bag. If you're here, you know Rob Zombie wins the day. Giving you some of Rob's movies for Halloween. Of course, if you watched the last video, you know it was led off by House of a Thousand Corpses. So here we are, moving down the road and talking about the next movie in the Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem, which is the 2005 movie The Devil's Rejects, which was also the sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses. So there you go, it all kind of plays out together. If you watched the first video today, then you know that I gave Rob Zombie the day because I feel like he earned it. I feel like it was much deserved for him to have the day because he made some great movies. Let's just be honest. So what I wanted to do with the Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem was to put the spotlight on older movies and put the spotlight on movies that might have flown under the radar, or writers, directors, producers who may not have got the credit that they deserved. Could have easily given this day to Wes Craven. Could have easily given it to Stephen King, which both of those gentlemen were on this list. If you're just joining us, I have been doing the Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem all month long, so scroll down, find the first video, and watch them all the way through. You'll see some good options. And the cool thing is, guys, Halloween this year fell on a Sunday, so maybe after church, kind of go home, hang out with the family, jump into a movie marathon, and perhaps you'll give some of these movies I'm bringing to you on T-Bone Southern Ride a look. But like I said, if you're here, you know we started off with House of a Thousand Corpses. Now we're on to The Devil's Rejects. Like I said, it's the sequel. Now, what we ended up with The Devil's Rejects, guys, is something different than what we ended up with House of a Thousand Corpses. House of a Thousand Corpses was just kind of mayhem, if you will, beginning to end. Kind of came out swinging and taking and making hard hits, and The Devil's Rejects the formula didn't need to be changed, but between the House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, Rob tinkered with the formula just a little bit and brought another great horror movie. If I'm being honest, I enjoyed all the movies, but if I'm really being honest with myself and with you guys, The Devil's Rejects was probably my favorite movie in the entire franchise. Simply because it does what I enjoy seeing done in a movie series, as it tells a backstory. So where House of a Thousand Corpses leaves us is Bill Moseley's character of Otis Driftwood raising up in the backseat of Bill Haig's Captain Spaulding's Cadillac, and that's the end of the movie. So that's mayhem. So The Devil's Rejects actually opens amidst the mayhem. You have a new character introduced into the fray, which is portrayed by a very great actor, an actor I enjoy watching, a man by the name of William Forsythe, who brought together and brought to life a character called Sheriff Wydell. Sheriff Wydell. Now, the reason I didn't mention the scene from the House of a Thousand Corpses is because I wanted to set it up. In the House of a Thousand Corpses, you see Mother Firefly, who at that time was played by Karen Black. In The Devil's Rejects, she was played by a different actress. What you seen there was Mother Firefly killing a sheriff's deputy named Wydell. Of course, now you fast forward to 2005, you find out that it's been a couple of years of mayhem. House of a Thousand Corpses set the world on fire with its kind of out of the box thinking, but now we see Rob really coming into his own with the Devil's Rejects, because bringing in William Forsythe to play, of course, Sheriff Wydell, you had some other great supporting characters. Rob reached out into the movie world, into Hollywood, and into the industry, and brought in some rather big names like a William Forsythe. Of course, we got Danny Trejo in this movie. Diamond Dallas Page is in this movie. For my professional wrestling fans, you know who DDP is. He actually plays a character in the Devil's Rejects. Him and Danny Trejo are a team, a tag team if you will, and they are bounty hunters. So we set up and open with the farmhouse, and we open with, of course, Otis and Baby and Mama Firefly all kind of just asleep in their beds, of course, amidst the carnage, dead bodies everywhere. Otis is actually in the bed with a cadaver, and Sheriff Wydell kind of eases in and surrounds the house, and it leads to what I feel is one of the best openings in a horror movie I had seen in a long time, which is a firefight that breaks out between the Firefly family and the Sheriff's Department. And of course, we find out that they are very well, the Firefly family is up to the challenge, so to speak. And you just get a great few minutes of carnage, mayhem, guns going off. Just a melee. And where we're at when we get to the end of the melee is that we kind of shifted the focus off of the entire family. Of course, Mother Firefly gets taken into custody by Wydell. Baby and Otis have, in essence, escaped the firefight, and they are now on the run. And of course, we find out a new piece of information in the Devil's Rejects that no one saw coming, including myself, is that Captain Spaulding was actually Otis and Baby's dad. He's actually the father of the Firefly family, and it was like, okay, really? This kind of crazy character now gets put into context, and it's like, oh, okay, well then, yeah, then the chick the heroine who escaped, or what we thought was going to escape from the House of a Thousand Corpses, not only does she end up in the car with Otis Driftwood, she ends up in the car with his dad, Captain Spaulding. And, you know, you look back after watching the Devil's Rejects and you go, well, she didn't make it. Sorry, but she wasn't the one victim left over at the end of the movie. And it's kind of like, wow, okay, so what we essentially see is the three kind of escape together, come together. Of course, now they have their own antagonist, and that's what I said in the original, or the first video in this series, was that Rob had done something with these characters. None of them died at the end of the first one, and he made them kind of the underdog characters. And in the Devil's Rejects, we still know they're bad people. They're still doing bad things, but they become relatable. They kind of become the underdogs, because as the movie progresses and you see the things that William Forsythe's character Sheriff Wydell does, once you start realizing that, okay, out of this entire crazy situation with this whole family of killers, the sheriff might actually be crazier than all them put together, because of course we find out that George Waddell, who was the sheriff's deputy who was shot in the head by Mother Firefly in the House of a Thousand Corpses, was his brother. So then you start realizing that the entire rage is vengeance. Of course, he wants the entire family to pay for his brother's death. Noticeably, he seems to really have a hard-on for Captain Spaulding for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because he views Spaulding as, you know, Spaulding was a business owner. He was a guy in the community probably that people trusted, not knowing that he was drawing them little maps that was sending them straight to their death. But he messed with Baby, he messed with Otis, but he really had a hard-on for Captain Spaulding, which brought us to Sid Haig's character kind of being thrust into the limelight of the movie series. Again, is why I say that The Devil's Rejects is probably I love the entire series, but The Devil's Rejects is probably my favorite movie out of the entire series, because it's not about Otis and Baby at this exact moment, it's about all three of them. And of course, being the story that it is, our characters end up it ends up turning into chaos, as most things does that this with this franchise. And in the mayhem that follows, we find out, of course, that the family again is a larger family, and we find out that Captain Spaulding has a brother. And they end up going to the brother. He kind of owns like a ghost town. Prostitution is his business. And we think for a moment that they might have reached some kind of safe harbor in the storm, but very quickly we realize that Sheriff Waddell is still right behind them. Not only is he right behind them, he has kind of pulled... Excuse me, guys. He's kind of pulled together a team who does all this research on them, and one of the breakthroughs is that we find out that all these characters, Captain Spaulding, Otis Driftwood, Mother Firefly, Charlie, all of these characters are Marx brothers. Groucho, Harpo, and Chico, Marx characters from different movies, specifically Animal Crackers. The old Marx Brother movie, which is a real movie. If you've never watched it, I have seen Animal Crackers. Big fan of Groucho Marx. Big fan of the Marx Brothers. I liked Harpo. I love to listen to him play the harp. Very beautifully done. He's the one who didn't speak. He walked around with a horn tooting it all the time. But anyway, and that adds yet another dimension, because it's like, okay, well, all these characters that they're calling themselves by, well, we find out that they're not really Firefly family. This is just the names they're using. So it lends to the mystique of the characters, because it's like, okay, well, crap, we don't know who these characters are. We don't know who these people are, and that's kind of a crazy thing. But not only that, it kind of sets up a scene in The Devil's Rejects that I thought was funny, when they brought in the movie critic to tell them more about the Marx Brothers and about the movies that they made. Groucho Marx and Elvis Presley had died at the same time, and of course the movie critic goes off on this tirade about Elvis has sucked up all the headlines, and of course it leads to the very first inkling, if you're really paying attention to the movie, that Sheriff Waddell may the bell that's hanging in his tower might actually be cracked. no nicer way to put it. He might have the bats in his belfry. They might actually be on some kind of drugs. But nonetheless, he ends up catching up to him, Wydell does, at Charlie's place. And of course, then we see the characters of Captain Spaulding, Otis Driftwood, and Baby turn into the heroes and heroines that might actually need to be saved from Wydell, because he proceeds to take them back to their ranch, back to their farmhouse, whatever, and he nails them to chairs. He staples pictures to their face and their body, and it's like, good God, this guy's drinking, and it kind of becomes a, I'm not a shepherd for the sheriff's department anymore. I'm not the good guy out here fighting the good fight. My name is Wydells, and Wydells have always chased down evil and been the killers of evil. And it's like, okay, so yeah, these are bad people that kill people and do all these bad things, but dude, you might actually be 3 hairs crazier than them. And as these scenes progress, it becomes pretty clear that Captain Spaulding is the original target, because at one point in the movie, and you actually see Wydell kill Mother Firefly in the police station. You see him sitting down in a mirror, essentially talking to Captain Spaulding, and it's like, good God, this guy's not only is he off of the grid, he may be completely off the entire reservation, because he's not doing good right now. And it makes for an interesting story. It makes for an interesting plot twist that Rob Zombie pulled off and executed very greatly. That we've taken these horrible people who were the antagonists in the first movie, and they were still antagonizing in the second movie. I didn't even mention the hotel scene. I want you guys to watch the movie and see it all for yourself. But you start feeling bad for them, because you realize that they're not on. Well, let me stop. I don't feel bad for them. You're not going to feel bad for them, because you start seeing the irony in their situation, and the irony being that they had captured these people and taken them and tied them up in their house and were torturing them. You start seeing that Wydell is doing the same thing, but what he needs to be doing at this point is getting them into jail, getting them arrested and booked, and getting them Mirandized, and he has completely floated off of the reservation, and he's just like, you know what, if I send you to court, there's a possibility you're going to get out on a loophole, and I'm not going to take that chance. But the way he goes about, of course, dispensing justice, it left a lot to be desired, especially if you were pulling for him as the good guy, which by all rights you should have been pulling for Wydell as the good guy. It kind of turns him into this very unsympathetic character that you're kind of like, okay, so I get the irony of what's happening here, but where is the decency of what should happen? And of course, there are some people out there who say, Wydell was doing exactly what he should have. He just should have quit drinking liquor so hard and actually finished the job that he set out to do. And, revenge for his brother, you could have seen kind of what was going to happen with that. You could have seen that, yeah, okay, now I kind of understand why he is doing what he's doing, or why he did what he did. But yeah, it's kind of a kind of a crazy thing to see how all that kind of came together. But The Devil's Rejects, guys, I will say that I'm not going to give the ending away, but I know the Tiny character from the House of a Thousand Corpses. I'll try to type the guy's name in when I look it up. I don't want to butcher it. I do know that he passed away not long after the movie was wrapped and production was going on and they were getting it ready. He had a long time illness. Of course, if you know who I'm talking about when I mention the Tiny character, if you've seen the movies, then you know that he was a giant man, well over 7 foot tall, and he had physical disabilities that hurt him and caused him a lifetime of pain. And of course, he lost that battle, but I did get to watch an interview, and I think it might have been on the Devil's Rejects DVD, where he had talked about his time with Rob and his time with Sid Haig and Sherry Zombie, of being able to come in and make this movie franchise with them. And they were able to form a friendship and a bond and a family-like atmosphere, because you can listen to interviews after he passed away and you could tell that it was still bothering the main characters from the House of a Thousand Corpses and the Devil's Rejects, because they had become very tight. And you know, that goes back to Rob being who he was and making a situation that those people were brought together, and they weren't just brought together for the sake of making a movie. They were brought together because they were creating a franchise and the people wanted them together. You know, that's kind of one of the things about, if you're a fan of any genre, it don't have to be horror. It could be comedy, it could be dramatic, it could be you following a Western series on TV, or you're following a TV series. Once you get invested with a group of characters, then you're pretty well much invested with their entire story. Which is to say, you want to actually see how their story ends, because you're so invested with them. And you know, the character of Tiny, at the end of the movie, as the farmhouse was burning down, he walked back into the house, which of course, you know, being that there was no supernatural bearings on what was going on in these movies, it was a very fitting end. It wasn't just a sad we didn't get to do, because I'll give you this much of the end of the Devil's Rejects. Tiny actually comes in and saves his family. He saves Spaulding, Otis, and Baby. He saves them from Wydell. So in essence, it was a very fitting goodbye, because he got to be the part and got to be the character that he wanted to be, and he got to go out the way he wanted to go out, which if any of us were in that situation, if we were allowed to have the opportunity to do the thing that we love to do, and to be able to exit that thing in the way we would want to exit it, that's a dream. That's a lifelong dream that I believe everybody has, and it's a dream that's denied to people. I mean, it's not a guaranteed thing that when you work in especially in Hollywood, where you can see anything at any moment. You can see a franchise take a direction that you would have never dreamed the franchise would have went. I give that guy a big wave, because he actually was headed out at the end of his driveway, and he saw me coming, and he kind of stopped and waited for me, and I'm very appreciative of that. That means he was paying attention to the road, and I love that. But you know, to be able to go out like that and to say that you had taken part in something and you was able to leave it on your terms, and for him to find such enjoyment. He found enjoyment playing the character. He enjoyed doing what he was doing, and I just thought that was kind of, you know, one of the heartwarming things that came out of it. And of course, the guy who played Charlie in the movie, he come from the Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. He actually had a prominent role in I think it was part 3 or 4, whichever one where they introduced Saw his family. He actually had a prominent role in that movie. And of course, Michael Barrymore, who has already been here. He started us out on the Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem, playing Pluto in The Hills Have Eyes. He is in this movie as Charlie's assistant. And like I said, Rob reached out and brought in a lot of great talent for this movie. Again, and I said that many times, which is one of the reasons why this was one of my favorite movies in the franchise, is because Rob did it the right way, and he brought in great talent. He brought in talent that he could have fun with, and he told stories that made a lot of sense and they were fun to tell. And you know, a lot of people looked at the House of a Thousand Corpses and they were kind of like, yeah, we're not sure we're going to get on board with Rob Zombie, the writer, director, the movie creator. And The Devil's Rejects, in its day in 2005, guys, when The Devil's Rejects came through and the fans of the House of a Thousand Corpses like me realized that this was a sequel to the House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects blew up and became huge. The Devil's Rejects probably is the biggest movie of the entire franchise, which there was only 3 movies in that franchise, but to me, The Devil's Rejects was the movie of the franchise. It was the one that stood out as the kind of the flag-bearing movie of the franchise. Of course, it gave us, like I said, it gave us a ton of relatable characters, and by this time Rob had introduced new characters, and really had brought it home and brought it full circle. But I tell you what, guys, man, I hope you guys have enjoyed your October. Of course, we're getting close to the end of this series. 2 more videos to go today, guys, and that'll be the end of the Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem. And again, guys, I want to just take a couple of minutes here. I want to just take a couple of minutes here, like I said, guys, and say thank you for joining me in this series. This is the first time I've ever put a whole series together like this. Thank you for all the support throughout the summer, guys. We have put together and put out a lot of Southern Ride videos. Like I said, we're getting close to the triple-digit mark. I think I counted them one day. I went back and counted, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we were in the 60s. So with these right here, it'll put us up a little further. But I put a lot of time into T-Bone Southern Ride and making it what it is. And I just want to thank you guys who are liking and supporting and watching. And I believe I've about figured out who my core group of watchers are. But thank you guys for that. And thank you for being a part of this Rocking Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem. You really made this special for me. And like I said, we've still got 2 videos to go today, but keep an eye out for that last video. Rob Zombie owns the day. There's 2 more videos to go. I promised you 4, and I've got 2 more to deliver. But keep your eyes out on that last video, because I'm actually going to make a major announcement that will affect T-Bone Southern Ride. So you want to be there for that. And remember, guys, to like, share, and comment. If you're on YouTube with me watching, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and give me a like over on YouTube, guys. The more likes I get on YouTube, it helps throw me into the algorithm. And YouTube is about to become a big part of T-Bone Southern Ride, which is something that I'll explain later on. But guys, for now, The Devil's Rejects. Give it a watch. Happy Halloween, guys. And like I said, I hope some of these movies that I'm talking to you about will draw enough attention to get you to watch them or go back and revisit them. But guys, until the next time, I am T-Bone, and this has been The Southern Ride.